Welcome back, listeners, to part 2. I'm Parker, and I'm once again here with Maya, co-host of the Truth, Courage, and Solutions podcast. Last episode, we sat down with Lewis Kuhlman, Crosse City environmental planner, to talk about the Crosse City Climate Action Plan. For part 2, we are continuing our conversation on navigating the use of bikes and buses within the La Crosse area.
Should we go to bikes?
Yep.
All right, this is my favorite topic.
Okay, cool.
So, when it comes to commuting in La Crosse, 74.8% drive alone. In a city like La Crosse, we need to find alternatives to lower these statistics, obviously, because it's very high.
Mm-hmm.
And a portion of your climate action plan that I believe could really help impact this statistic is improving walking and biking routes throughout the community, specifically making it more comfortable and safe for people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. There's like the sort of middle segment of people who are like interested, can ride a bike, want to be able to get to and from places on a bike, but just don't feel safe. I mean, I'm a sort of fearless biker. I don't think I want to bike on Copeland, but yeah, I'll bike on the sidewalk there. But for the most part, I feel very comfortable biking the street. So I have to give more consideration.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of infrastructure investment that is definitely, I think, worthwhile. I see, no offense to you all, but a lot of college students or young people definitely feel more safe biking on the sidewalks, even on roads that have bike lanes.
Yes.
So like La Crosse Street, before it was redone, like I'd bike in the very bumpy bike lanes and see people biking on the sidewalk. I'm like, come on.
And Cass Street, I see it all the time.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that, there are definitely advocates for like protected bike lanes, separated bike lanes that are more like off street trails. We've got bike boulevards, or as we also call them, neighborhood greenways. So there's different types of ways we can hopefully make people feel safe, but I'd say one of the ways that I learned to be more confident is having sort of a bike buddy, or just a mentor who's like pretty fearless, and just biking around with them, and like being scared for the first few times, and then realizing like this is totally doable. So some communities have what are they called? Critical mass. Yeah. So it's like an organized bike ride where all the community bikers get together and just take up space on the street and say, we're traffic too, so please respect us, and acknowledge that we're here, and then also helping other people feel more comfortable. If you can feel comfortable biking in a group, you can hopefully eventually feel more comfortable biking alone. And again, that doesn't excuse the lack of bike infrastructure, but that's just what to do in the meantime while you're waiting for those millions of dollars to be invested.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of statistics saying people will divert from like the shortest route if there's more like off-road trails and boulevards put into place. So having something like that could really help.
Right. Yeah, and just like the connectivity is important too, like making sure that we're connecting between those trails and our street network, making sure they're continuous too. It's surprising that even though La Crosse, has a street grid network, not every street is continuous, like all the way through. Like, for example, if you've got 3rd and 4th, but if you're just talking about Cass Street, 5th Street goes straight through Cass, but the next street that is aligned through Cass Street is 10th. So, I mean, I guess 7th now too, because of the roundabout, but like when
Things don't line up.
yeah, streets don't line up, it just makes it more difficult to travel through, and it just concentrates traffic on other roads. So it's a challenge, but yeah, it's just how we're thinking that out and making sure they're all connected.
I guess a question that I really think of is, especially like this time of year, there's so many college students in the area. And I feel like those are the type of students that should get out, ride their bikes, go places. How do you think that I don't know how to word it. How do you think we encourage them to get on bikes, get out, go places?
Well, I I think our bike share has a lot of potential to get people out on bikes. I see a lot of young people riding the drift cycle, and I think that's great. So making sure there's stations at campus and there's plenty of bikes there, and then just having stations at frequent destinations too. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing, and just again having a bike buddy is tough, and just being willing to do that. I think I'm not sure what campus restrictions are now, but like I remember when I was a freshman, like you couldn't have a car on campus probably until you were maybe like a sophomore. I don't know, but that those kind of restrictions, making it tougher to or more expensive to park or like store your car, I think. Yeah, but on the other hand, it needs to be easier to go by bus or go by bike. So
Yes.
we gotta work on both.
So you mentioned bike share. Just for anybody
Yeah.
who doesn't know, do you want to touch on what that is?
Sure. Well, the drift cycle in lacrosse is a bike share system where you set up a profile on an app, and you use your phone to pay for a short-term rental of a bike. You trigger in the app like to unlock the bike lock. You ride it around, lock it back up, and then you get charged for the brief time you use it.
Okay, that's cool. Because I've seen one on by Boot Hill Pub.
Okay.
And I was like,
How
how do you use this?
it?
Because I wanted to like take it,
Yep.
and I guess I didn't know. So I guess there's an app I can download.
Yep.
So I don't own a bike. I have a longboard, but it's like I don't feel the safest on a longboard either. It's just like I'm sure it's the same with biking.
Yeah.
But I also don't wear a helmet, so maybe that's my own fault. But
Always wear a helmet. I
Right.
feel like with biking, like a big problem is like the educational aspect of it. Like you said, how do you ride your bike on the road?
Mhm.
How do you get a bike from driftless cycles? Like what kind of equipment do you need? The maintenance for a bike? And honestly, it adds up a lot.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the bike share really takes those concerns about maintenance out of the equation. But yeah, feeling safe, I think it would be nice if people felt so safe that they didn't feel like they needed a bike helmet. But I guess, yeah, you probably still need a bike helmet for now, or at least, yeah, you definitely have a bike
always
helmet.
wear a bike.
Yes. Future
Always.
nurses.
Yeah.
Yeah, head injuries are no joke. Let's see what else. I think, well,
Yeah.
it's tough to like as someone who bikes frequently, like to make sure that bicyclists also have to obey traffic laws, use hand signals when you're turning, that kind of stuff, use lights at night. Those are all important that not everybody follows, and sometimes individuals give bicyclists a bad reputation, and then all bicyclists get a bad reputation because of that. So it's tough.
So maybe like implementing a community educational ride or like bike maintenance things into the community would be super beneficial.
Yeah, and I would say that there were definitely more community members involved before COVID. I'm not sure how that's changed since. I used to staff the city's bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee, but just focus on the climate action plan steering committee at the moment. So the bike education isn't really there, or isn't like it's not on my radar. But there's the Wisconsin Bike Federation and the League of American Bicyclists. So local people that are members in that can lead sessions and
I'll have
stuff.
to tell our professor because he's huge into biking, so
Yeah.
we'll get him to do it.
I just feel like if you did it on college campuses too, just like brought it up,
Well,
it could be huge.
yeah,
because people want to get outside. I actually became a biker like 2 years ago,
Yeah,
and it's only because I have a boyfriend who was a biker.
right. Exactly. You've got your bike buddy right
Yes.
there. So yeah, I think too, for say like the UWL campus, there's a lot of people walking and some people biking, but there's not like a dedicated bike lane. And that's frustrating. I sometimes bike to the UWL campus, and yeah, just it's tough. Like you're like, I'm going like just as fast as a person walking, just to try to make sure that I'm avoiding them. And
Mhm.
so it'd be really nice to have bike lanes on campus. That's sort of a separate jurisdiction though, so it's
Yeah.
tough to negotiate. But yeah,
Well, another thing that I would say I would have the biggest concern with in lacrosse for biking, and it's actually the reason I don't bike anymore, like to work and stuff,
ah,
is the safety of locking our bikes up because
mhm.
a lot of people get their bikes stolen around this area.
Your bike's too fancy. Just kidding.
Yeah.
That's a bad analogy. I actually had a coworker get his bike stolen from the bike rack just by the police station door entrance. So the police were like, "Oh, we're getting this guy.
Yeah.
They can't
That is so
do that."
bold, right?
Yeah,
To the police
yeah.
station.
So yeah,
I guess is there something we can implement or something we could do so people aren't as worried about getting their bikes stolen?
right. Yeah, I learned firsthand not to use a rope lock. Um, that I got my bike stolen from using a rope lock. So I have a U-lock that's much more durable. Um, and then you can also put like, even though I said not a rope lock, but you can put like a cable through both your tires so you don't get your tires stolen. So like you connect it to your U-lock and then put it through your tires. Um, think about like if you're parking your bike in public and you have like those, I don't know, whatever makes your seat easy to remove. Like if it makes it easy to remove for you, it makes it easy to remove for other people.
Mhm.
So think about like anything that has like something you can remove without a tool on your bike, probably maybe switch to something else. Um, think about where you're storing your bike. Um, don't like just leave it unlocked on your porch. Even if it's unlocked in a locked garage, I mean, you could, if someone breaks into your garage, they can take your bike. So even lock it up when it's inside, I suppose, probably would help. Yeah, I had an older bike and I would leave it outside at night in the lacrosse center parking lot and never had a problem. But now that I have a newer bike, I'm a little bit more concerned, so I carry it up to my apartment and store it inside. But yeah,
I feel like
we could
it,
do better
yeah,
educate. Well,
that's what I was gonna say. I feel
better
like it would be
awareness.
beneficial, like
I think a lot of
where
things.
you lock your bike.
Yeah.
Maybe just have a sign that's like, this is what you should, this is how you should lock your
Ah.
bike. Because I got my bike stolen when I was a freshman.
Mm.
So, I came here, I didn't know people's
Right,
bikes
right. I
got
know.
stolen. I used a rope lock, went to the library, locked it up, came out of the library, and it was gone. But maybe if we just had like a sign that says,
Right. And we probably could do better with like, I mean, real cameras or fake cameras, just to be like, oh, this is under surveillance, so maybe I shouldn't steal this bike. But
something.
lighting, there's a lot of different things you could do.
I think a lot of like topics related to the bike has to do with like education, just getting like the knowledge out there for people. Because I know like
Yeah.
the lacrosse police, don't they have like thing that you mentioned with like all the stolen bikes are like given away,
Yeah,
and
the
like
bike barn, they have the
and like
auction in the
that could
fall.
increase biking in the community. People went to that. Like I wanted to go get a bike from like when you told me, I was like, I gotta go get a bike, but I didn't know when it was happening. But
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say for the time being, use bike share. Hopefully that'll.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it out, download the app.
Yeah. So slightly off the record, but and no offense to you all, I anytime I'm in like a public meeting and I'm looking for feedback and people say we need more education, I'm like, we need to be more specific when we talk about education.
Yeah.
So I would say in your future careers or in your future like engagement, think more specifically about what you mean when you say education. Because when I hear that, it just makes me want to roll my eyes.
Because it's almost like you're saying something, but we have to do something.
Like specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very. yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%. Because we can say we can educate people, but how are we going to do it so they understand it?
Right. Yeah. So I think you had a good example of posting like how to lock up a bike
Mhm.
at bike racks. Yeah, because people, I mean, I guess as a more experienced biker, I take that for granted. Like everybody
'Cause
should
you
know how to do
know.
this. Yeah.
I would have no idea how
Or
to do it.
or like even there's like I know how to lock up my bike normally. Like I make sure I stick my U-lock through my front wheel and around my frame. But some racks you can't do that. Like at Festival Foods, like unless I'm on the end of the rack and locking to that thicker pole, I can't lock it to it. So the type of racks that we have are are a challenge, and even like rack placement makes it harder to lock your bike up effectively.
Yeah. Yeah, so just finding a bike buddy is what it
Mhm.
comes down to. Finding someone that knows how to bike.
Yeah, if you lock your bike to their bike, then yeah, then you'll be better off probably.
So many ways to lock a bike.
Yeah. Um, anything else biking wise?
No, I'm least educated on this topic, so I have nothing.
I would say maybe some last closing
Yeah,
remarks.
for sure.
You know, there's a wide range of bicyclists. I know there's a lot of bike enthusiasts in lacrosse. We've got the Outdoor Recreation Alliance, so there's a lot of mountain biking. There's a lot of people who do road biking in spandex and like the speed helmets and stuff. And that's not me. I just bike from place to place. So I have a commuter bike. I wear what I'm wearing now. Um, I have a chain guard, so like I don't have to worry about rolling up my pant legs. So that's nice too. Um, I carry around my lights all the time. But like I would say for the most part, during we'll say 3 seasons of the year, you can probably just wear what you're normally wearing. If you want to get serious and bike through the winter, then it's just a matter of wearing the right kind of clothes. So that's just something to think about is like dressing in layers, having rain gear. Like if I biking from work, and when it's raining isn't so bad, then I can just change when I get home. But biking to work and not having a change of clothes and just sitting in wet clothes is no fun. So yeah, it takes a little bit more planning, knowledge of the anticipation of the weather, wearing the right clothes. But yeah, you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to prep to bike. But I almost think like looking back on electric vehicles and biking, if you start seeing more people bike, you start seeing more people drive electric cars, it's just going to be a chain reaction too.
Yep, exactly. And uh, that reminds me of just like electric bikes too. I think that's a really good sort of gateway into biking. It's going to be a challenge though because the speeds of electric bikes are a lot different um, than just biking. Like I could bike 10 miles an hour pedaling, but someone on an electric bike, you can go up to 20 miles an hour. So you should maybe be in the road rather than the bike lane. But um, I think that'll be interesting to see how that develops. But I'm hoping that that encourages more people to get out of their car and yeah, save. Um, it'll hopefully reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
And you'll get places faster
Yeah.
than if you were to just bike.
So no, in like bigger cities, I've seen like electric bikes and like electric scooters who like Lyft and Uber. They'll have those that can rent out. Kind
Yeah,
of similar to the bike share that you mentioned.
yeah. I think we could get electric bikes. That would be a good addition to the bike share. I think it's kind of a big and expensive leap. So we'll see how that goes over the next few years. I think the city sort of preempted electric scooters just because of how much they like take up space on the sidewalk or could end up just thrown into the river. I think regulations on um, like not only the companies that have the scooters, but also communities that host the scooters are setting better rules that hopefully that'll be something we could think about in the near future. So like for people like you who have a longboard, electric scooter isn't like too much different, but yeah, that would be another alternative.
Yeah, that'll be fun too.
They are fun.
So,
Cool.
what do you think about possible employer incentives or actions to increase commuting by bike?
So I mentioned the League of American Bicyclists earlier. They have a designation called bike friendly businesses. And like I wish I had more off the top of my head, but I'm sure like our bike stores are probably bike friendly businesses, or I know the Bodega Brew Pub is a bike friendly business because they have a sticker in their doorway because they give out stickers, or the League of American Bicyclists give out stickers for this designation. So there's a few things that you can do is you make sure that you have bike racks, shower facilities too, just in case, or if people are biking from long distances and get sweaty, they can get cleaned up. Indoor storage that's like locked, and any way to protect bikes from theft. But yeah, those are some of the things. Or just like mm, you can also have like incentives through the human resources department, like maybe you get a discount if you bike to work. One of the things that I would like to look at is what's called a parking cash out program, where right now at the city, employees don't have to pay for parking. At the county, they used to have to pay for parking, now they don't. But if it would kind of be probably not looked at favorably if we said, okay, we're going to start charging for parking, people might get upset. But if we said, hey, if you don't park here, we'll give you like an extra whatever, $20 a month or something, or the equivalent of a parking pass in addition to your salary, or like as an incentive. So those kinds of, like, rather than the carrots and sticks, rather than the stick, it's a carrot to say, okay, I won't bike, or I won't drive, and then I'll get this extra money on my paycheck. So that's one way to encourage biking as well.
Yeah, just having those incentives. I know my mom at work, her boss is a huge biker, and he split everyone into teams and said, whoever bikes the most or like gets the most miles, like,
yeah, make it a challenge, make it fun.
People love competition.
Yeah.
So implementing something like that, I think, would also really up biking in the community.
Yeah.
All right, last one then, buses.
Yeah.
I don't know much about like the lacrosse buses because I just have my longboard in my car, so I don't use it much. But in the research process, we came across a couple of studies that like bus specific traffic lanes that have like reduced traffic congestion and improved bus timetables, and also like helps promote public transportation. If this is something like lacrosse is looked into on some of the busier streets, like I can't even think of one. Losey,
very busy.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. It's definitely something that we're seeing larger communities take on. And what's cool too is, like, we were talking about bikes, like when a bus isn't on it, you could easily bike in it. So it could double as a bike lane. I think that would be a big cultural shift. I think one way to go about it would be to add another lane that's just a bus lane, but that doesn't really do anything to reduce automobile traffic. It just takes up more space for buses. So ideally, what you would want to do is take away a car lane and make it a bus lane, and that would it would make driving less appealing and busing more appealing. So there would be that clear trade-off. That's probably not going to fly, unfortunately. But there are things like bus rapid transit that have dedicated lanes that we could look into. That's a huge investment, but they're typically looked at as much nicer. You can pay before you get on board, so they're a lot faster and kind of more direct. So that's definitely one thing to make buses more attractive. The buses in lacrosse have great coverage, but they also have very zigzagging routes. So if you were to say, like, for those of you who go to Viterbo, if you wanted to get downtown, I guess, yeah, it's kind of a zigzagging route. Is that bus one?
It takes longer to get downtown for sure.
Yeah, because there's a lot of turns, and I would take like the 5 to the north side, and after like going back and forth like 3 or 4 times, it's just like almost nauseating. So I think we really need to think about it. We could balance this sort of hitting every part of the city, but getting more direct, and it's a tough trade-off. But yeah, I think it's so far serving the community well. If there's any sort of improvements we can make, for example, the Route 5 I mentioned the sort of zigzagging around. I think recently the MTU decided to make fewer turns to get to where it was going. So hopefully that'll help. It'll definitely speed up the bus itself, but also make it more comfortable for riders as well.
Yeah.
And Lacrosse has like 2 electric buses at the moment, or is it
Yep.
something like that? Is there any plans to get more of those, or
Um,
those things are pretty
yes,
nifty? Like,
yeah.
Yes, they're quiet.
yeah,
Well, yeah, we'll qualify it. Um, as you mentioned, there's the reduced fuel economy in the winter, so that makes it not always that attractive for winter busing. The electric buses are still newer to the market, so we're looking at working with manufacturers that have a good track record. The ones that we have were battery manufacturers that made the buses. I think we also need to look at bus manufacturers that are incorporating batteries. So making sure that we're getting high quality and longevity. So I think for the time being, we're probably going to be leaning more towards hybrids. We do have a electric charger, so we could. I mean, if there were plug-in hybrid buses, that might be something we could look at. But it's just, you know, um,
I mean, like you said, with electric vehicles, hybrid is like a nice stepping stone, and like
Good
something's
in
better than
between.
nothing. Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
yeah,
You're going forward instead of going backwards.
yeah,
at
because like
least.
even with my hybrid, like I fill up so little, like compared. I used to have like a normal gas car, and with the hybrid I have, it's just like I save a lot of money just on gas, so
Mhm.
it's like really nice. So I got some statistics here from the climate action plan. It
Okay.
says that on average, households have 525 transit trips per week within 1/2 mile, fully transit routes within a half mile. 39,753 people have jobs that are accessible in a 30-minute trip. Yet we only have 1.9% commuters who use public transit. And Lacoste as a city, I think, has very accessible like public transportation.
Mhm.
So how do we reduce barriers to ridership, improve ridership within the community, and make public transportation a more attractive option for people?
Yeah, good question. There's a lot to that.
Yeah, I apologize.
There's well, let's go one statistic by one. So what was the first one?
525 transit trips per week within a half mile.
Within a half mile. So short distance. That's, I mean, the general rule for like a walking trip distance would be like a quarter mile. So a half mile is a little bit longer than a transit trip. So to me, that says that um, it speaks a little bit to the users of transit, like, and the perception of transit that this is just for poor people or disabled people, and so it's uh, looked down upon for that reason, or it's just people that can't afford cars so I think there's sort of that stigma attached with transit ridership, which is as I mentioned earlier with the bus rapid transit kind of sort of elevating the experience a little bit so more people will ride. All right, next stat.
Fully transit routes within a half mile.
Right, so that speaks to what I was saying earlier, is that our routes have a lot of good coverage, but sometimes they're a bit more circuitous than people would like. For example, I would like to ride the bus from downtown to Marcus Theater and watch a movie, but it really zigzags around. It goes through Mayo, and then it goes through Gunderson, and then probably some other places, and then it eventually gets down to the movie theater. So if it was just like, um, like basically like a driving route, if it just stuck to the main arterial road of Third and Fourth, South Avenue, Mormon Cooley, we'd probably get a lot more ridership, but it's not as easy and accessible for everybody. So
I agree. And I guess if you're in a pinch and like you're late for work, they're gonna be late. It's hard to get on the bus, and they're going like this. You're like, well,
and
so
then
it's like,
yeah, and it also speaks to, again, I'll use my movie experience or movie going visiting as a anecdote, but just like at night after 5, the bus only comes every hour. So if, say, the movie ended at 9, but the bus comes at like 8:45, I would have to wait 45 minutes for the next bus. So that's not always pleasant. And then also, like, well, we have a really nice central bus station. Um, our bus stops don't always have shelters. Some of them don't even have benches. I've seen people just like sitting on the curb. So it's uh, there could be a more investment there, and it's tough because it's, again, a chicken and the egg sort of conundrum where we're like, well, there's not a lot of people riding the bus at this stop, so why would we invest in infrastructure? Well, maybe if we invested in the infrastructure, more people would ride it. So it's tough to make those calls.
Yeah. Should I keep going down the stats?
Sure. Yeah. See if I can.
Yeah. So 39,753 jobs accessible in a 30-minute trip.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah. That's a.
Yeah. So that's right. I mean, if people, it takes some planning, similar to biking, where you got to look at the weather and dress right. This is like, okay, where you could leave your garage whenever you want and it's completely on your schedule. You have to be like, okay, I have to make it at the bus stop at this time to make it to work. And sometimes that means, unless we had like, I'll say this. Ideally, like a high frequency bus system would operate like come to a stop like every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That would make it pretty flexible for people coming to and from work. Like you wouldn't want to be 30 minutes early to work, especially if you definitely have to stay until your end time. So coming 30 minutes early doesn't take off 30 minutes at the end of the day. So that's not really great. But I think that's probably the biggest concern is just like, I think there's a lot of independent attitude. Like I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. So
it's a culture thing.
Yeah. And then, but if we could get more frequent bus, higher frequency, we could probably get more ridership. But, if we've got, say, buses coming every 30 minutes, but we want buses coming every 15 minutes, that's twice as many buses. So that's a huge investment.
It's like, does the cost outweigh the benefit?
Yeah. And again, it's a chicken and egg situation. Like, how do we know that are we gonna get twice as much ridership if we have twice as many buses or not?
Yeah. I wonder if there's like something like the Safe Ride program, where so many college students use it, like somehow make a culture shift where like all the Mayo employees go on this bus, if you live within the city, and we're going straight to Mayo. And then
it's almost like an incentive thing again. Like you could get, if you work for Mayo or you work for Gunderson, like if we see you coming to work on the bus, this happens, this happens. Same with the bike.
Yeah. So employers can subsidize bus passes. I have a free bus pass. So that's great. But yeah, employers can do that. I think about too, like the Scenic Mississippi River Transit, the Smart Bus. That goes more towards outlying communities. So like there's shuttles that are specifically serving like Organic Valley or Ashley Furniture. Like that's the kind of employer partnership that works. But I mean, in town, it's a little bit more difficult and shorter distances, it's more difficult to convey those benefits. But this is sort of a tangential argument. But the Smart Bus wanted $30,000 from the city, in addition to whatever we gave. It was like, God, we're just subsidizing people to live further and further out. But I was thinking about it, and it costs about $30,000 per parking stall in like a structured parking ramp. So if you're thinking about like, geez, if we just gave, I mean, that would just be for like one car parking per day or whatever, for work. But this transit system is for many, many people, and we can avoid that cost. I'm like, well, then that's a good trade-off. So it's just like, if you put it in the context of like, I mean, the cost of building a parking structure is the cost of subsidizing transit worth it.
Yeah,
that's an insane stat. You said one parking space is $30,000 or something like that.
Yeah, it might even be higher. But
I did not know that. That's like, whoa.
Like in a parking ramp.
Yeah.
Cheaper. It's cheaper if it's
on flat ground.
Yeah, on flat ground. But I mean,
still expensive.
and from a city perspective, that's basically undeveloped land that could be a building that could add value to the city. So that's another trade-off too.
I was just say all these like things are just so like
It's so interconnected.
yeah, it's like
everything.
everything is interconnected.
Right.
and it's-
That's a good point about interconnection. I think we could do a better job of connecting our transit, like our bus stops, and having bike share right there. So you can, once you get to your bus stop, you can bike someplace using the same app or using connected apps to do that. Having a bike buddy, but also having a bus buddy to show you what to do. And then, yeah, and then just like the connection of land use and transportation is so underestimated, but like tightly woven.
Mhm. And I think it's the same thing, like with all of them. Like lacrosse is a community where bikes, electric vehicles, and buses could be easily implemented and grow.
quote unquote easily.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
not easily, but it can grow and help out a lot. But I think if one person gets a electric car, and they start telling their friends, they'll get electric cars. One friend in the group starts to like biking. All of them start biking.
Yeah.
One starts riding the bus. It's just a chain reaction that one person needs to start and spread word, and it
It's-
can easily happen.
Right. It's tough being that pioneer, and I mean, larger cities have already, larger communities and larger sub communities that like biking communities, so it's easier to find. So in areas like lacrosse, if there's not someone like carrying that torch, or a small group of people like being persistent in carrying that torch, it could fall, and then you end up being like having to re-pioneer. I don't know, re-encouraging people to bike. So it's a challenge as people move on, and yeah, especially in the college community where it's like,
Yeah.
we've got students that have a lot of great ideas and bring a lot of different culture to the community, and make lacrosse a great place, and are sometimes taken for granted because like, oh, those college students cause so many problems. But keeping you all around and making the city a better place is really important, and definitely a concern for me is like, well, when I talk to students, like, what would it take for you to want to stay here? Like, what would you like to see to want to stay in lacrosse? From a planning perspective, I'm thinking about like, how do we keep more college students in the community, and continue to be more innovative, and stick with these ideas of like EV adoption, like more biking and walking, more bus ridership.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you for joining us today, Lewis. It's been a pleasure to have you on this podcast. You don't have to know the details of the science to be part of the solution. If you wait until you know everything, it will be too late for you to do anything. Page 3 of Ayana Johnson and Katherine Wilkinson's book, All We Can Save. In episode 2, the host will be Marie and Allie, and the topic of that discussion will be on waste management. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you join us back on another episode of the Truth, Courage, and Solutions podcast.